All right, guys. Hey, what's up? So welcome to a test setup. I don't know if I'll stick with it, but as you can see, I do have a mic now. So I've actually had a mic for a long time. Being in a band, doing music production, I've always had, or not always, but I've had this stuff for a while. But anyway, so I wanted to talk about something that I came across earlier today, and I thought, I'd give my thoughts on it. I have been a Halo player, Halo fan since Halo 1, early days of Halo 1. I remember when I was in summer school, actually, and my dad gave me the option. He was like, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a new bike or an Xbox? And I think it was kind of like a reward for doing well in summer school or something. I was like, I'd rather have an Xbox. Of course, I didn't want a bike. And yeah, that was it. I remember I told my friend, hey, I'm getting an Xbox. And he's like, dude, oh man, if you're getting an Xbox, dude, you gotta get Halo. You gotta play Halo. And I was like, Halo? I'd never heard of Halo. Yeah, I remember we went to Best Buy. We picked up an Xbox back in the day when you could actually go to the store and find the game system. But it's also the pandemic and, other things. But anyway, yeah, went into the store, got the Xbox, picked out Halo, and I think we got an extra controller. Back then, of course, the controllers were huge. They had the Duke. You just got used to it. And this was probably one of the first games I remember playing with the dual stick controls, right? Now it's commonplace. Nobody really thinks about it too much, but Halo, for myself and I think a lot of people, was the first game that introduced playing with dual analog sticks for direction. So it was a pretty big deal, and I think it's pretty much revolutionized the gaming world. And I feel like people forget about how big of an impact Halo has had in the gaming world. Even though it's just an Xbox game, dude, Halo is freaking huge. I remember it when they showed off Halo 2, the trailer for Halo 2, it was like, oh my gosh, it was incredible. Honestly, I don't think there's been a game that has really touched the gaming world like Halo has and has had. It's just not the same, I know there's a lot of other iconic games out there, and I know there's a lot of people, there's always been a rivalry, I guess, or not really. I never thought of it this way with the Call of Duty people. I remember just putting so much time and energy into playing Halo. And this was back before they had Xbox Live. You couldn't play online with people. You had to use this software. I think it was called Xbox Connect or something like that, or XB Connect. And basically what you had to do was you had to use this software that would hijack your LAN port so you could connect to people around the world and play. And a lot of times the games were horribly laggy. I remember that was my big thing for not wanting to do Xbox Live, because I was like, I don't want to pay for a service and it's laggy, so I remember that I kind of held off for a little bit, but people were like, no, it's good, it's pretty stable. And yeah, it was a pretty big game changer. But anyway, I wanted to talk about Halo, especially Halo Infinite, because I recently came across this video, and I'll put the link in the description. You can check it out. And basically in the video, the guy talked about how in Halo, there's been this massive drop off with people not really playing Halo. 100,000-ish people have stopped playing Halo. And he goes more into detail about why some of the reasons people left or stopped playing. And I was just kind of taken back, because I was like, this is crazy, And so I actually ended up commenting. I'll read what I wrote. I said, this is such a weird contrast to why I play and why many of my friends played Halo or any games growing up. We didn't just play because there was some event to unlock content or level up your characters. We played because we enjoyed the game and had fun playing with each other. Same thing with Call of Duty. I could really care less about what my ranking is, as long as I'm being paired with people who are of a similar skill level. That's what makes it such an enjoyable experience. And somebody else commented about that, basically being like, yeah, you know, you're like one of the only people who's really said anything like this. And it's true. I feel like, especially with this more modern generation of gamers, is I don't know, maybe he's just been spoiled or something, because I remember when there was no new DLC, there was no new game content until the next game came out. DLC wasn't really a thing until way later in the days of Xbox Connect, or Xbox Live, I mean. And I remember that infamous one with, I think it was, what was it, Oblivion or something? There was this game that had the golden horse armor. That was a big controversy because I think it was like really expensive. I forgot how much it was. First of all, it's absolute BS and garbage that you have companies that are releasing these highly revered games and they have all these bugs, all these glitches, and they come out with this sort of mentality of, well, we'll fix it later. You know, right now we just want to get the game out there in people's hands, and then any problems or glitches, we'll fix it later. No, you ship it working and then you make it better. That's how it's supposed to be. And people, I feel like, have been making, I don't know, I feel like they make excuses for these companies. This is one reason why you should not pre-order. Do not pre-order. You know, first of all, there's no real point to it. There used to be a point because maybe you had to worry about inventory, like, oh, if I don't pre-order it, I may not get this game, you know, or I'll have to wait for some time. Or there were perks and benefits, like you get special treats or content if you buy it from a particular store. But now there's not really an incentive to go out and buy or do a pre-order. I feel like a lot of companies, they went and they took advantage of this idea of like, well, I can just ship it as is and then I'll try to fix it later, or we'll fix it later. And so that's why when you had games like Battlefield 2042 or whatever, and it shipped in such a horrible condition, yeah, that wouldn't have happened like 15 years ago or 20 years ago, or in the days of like pre-Xbox Live. That wouldn't have happened, because if they had shipped the game and it was barely unplayable, you know what would have happened? They probably, that company probably would have shut down. They wouldn't have survived, because there was no way to go back and fix things. You know, they had to ship a finished and polished product. Now, that's not to say that games back then didn't have issues or glitches. Of course they did, but they weren't well, that's not true. There were some games that did have game-breaking glitches, but it was one of those things of, for the most part, most people probably wouldn't come across them. And if they did, maybe by accident or however they came across, it could mess up the game, but it wasn't like just obvious, like, oh yeah, don't go in that area because your game is going to crash and it's going to shut down. And then usually you had forums and stuff, like people would talk about their experiences with the games. That was my thing, is, you know, there was a completely different mentality of the game shipped fully finished. Everything that was going to be with the game was with the game. So the maps that were with the game were until they shipped out the next game. Coming up with that sense, that mentality of like, that's how games were. Now when people are like, yeah, you know, yeah, man, it's just, the game just needs this, or it needs that feature, or it needs this content, or it needs that, I'm not going to really play it until they add that stuff. That's just such a weird foreign ideology to me, because it's like, you played the game, played it for fun. You know, it wasn't about leveling up. It wasn't about, you know, now I will say this. I think Halo 2 had probably one of the best ranking systems. It's controversial, and it definitely had some big room for improvement, but I feel like it was one of the most interesting, one of the best ranking systems, because first of all, in Halo 2, there was a pretty crazy ranking system where as you played more games and you got better, or you played better and you did better, you would level up, right? But then you'd hit essentially your peak, right? And you'd get to as far as you could by yourself. And then there was a certain point in the game, in the ranking system, where essentially the only way to level up was if you played with other friends on your team, unless you were doing like free-for-all. But if you're doing like Team Slayer and stuff, you could only really rank up by playing with a group of friends that were also good. And then as a group, you guys leveled up, because the idea of like getting paired consistently with a team that could deliver was, you couldn't count for. I mean, you maybe level up 1 or 2 or 3, and then as soon as you start losing games, you would drop in rank. And so it actually got to the point where people would basically sabotage games so they could D-rank, play against basically crappier opponents. So you had people who would go and they would be in like maybe the high 20s or something, and then all of a sudden they would basically commit suicide in the game. They would throw grenades on themselves and blow themselves up, or jump off at ledges just so that they could lower their score, and thus they would basically D-rank. And or you would have people that would just create all new accounts so that they could start at 1, they'd level up to a certain point, and then they'd start a new account, because they wanted to play, they really just wanted to play against easy players. They didn't want to play against people who are actually like really good. And it would get to that point where you'd hit a ceiling and you're playing against players that are just like on point. And if your team wasn't also on point and they were just running around doing whatever, you guys are screwed. You weren't gonna, level up. So I wouldn't mind seeing a ranking system, or a better ranking system in Halo. I think that Halo would definitely benefit from that. I definitely think that Halo would benefit from new maps, but at the same time, I'm not gonna stop playing it because it only has these maps, And obviously, at some point, they're gonna come out with more content. It's a given. It's the modern age of gaming. If 343 announced, hey, we're not coming out with new maps, this is it, then that would be maybe some cause for concern. But for the time being, it's perfectly fine. The game has only been out for a few months, so this idea of like, yeah, man, they need to come out with these new maps and more content and more content. Yeah, they're coming out with content, but in the meantime, just enjoy the game. Just play it, have fun. You play the game long enough, you're gonna unlock everything, or at least as long as they keep putting out content, you're gonna have stuff to unlock. But I don't know, it's just like you hear people and they're kind of complaining about the game, and they're complaining about what it doesn't have, and it's not just Halo, it's a lot of games, and some games it's absolutely warranted. But anyway, I'm going off topic. The whole point of this video, though, is that I just felt like people have gotten to the point where they'll play a game for a little while and then they just get bored, and they're like, yeah, it just doesn't have enough of this, or it doesn't have enough of that, and then they go and they play another game. The other thing too I wanted to talk about was streaming. Lately, it seems like a metric for how well or how good a game is by how many people are streaming that game, and how many people are watching people stream that game. And for the longest time, Halo has never been really one of those games that people have either streamed that much or watched people stream. And it's because it's not a game that you do that for. You play it, Games like Warzone or more battle royale type games it's different because it's more or less strategy, and it's more like the long play. You're not just watching like to see. It's a totally different thing when it's more of a team deathmatch type game and you're having these short matches. You look at even Gears of War. Gears of War didn't really do well with streaming. And that's not to say that it's not a good game or anything like that. I just think, again, it's another one of those games that it's just more fun to play. Like, I don't want to watch somebody play Gears of War. I don't really want to watch people play Halo. I want to play it, And if anything, if I watch them play it, it makes me want to turn on my system and play it. So I don't think that using streaming should be a great or a good metric for how well or successful a game is doing or how well it's being received. There are just some games that are more fun to watch people play, and then there are some games that it's like, no, I just want to play it. I don't want to watch other people play it. And so I think Halo definitely fits in that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, And like I said, I don't know if I'm going to stick with this format, but we'll see how it goes. And I will catch you guys later.